All right, welcome back. It is time to talk about Fargo Season 5, Episode 8, Blanket, written by Noah Hawley and Thomas Bazooka, directed by Sylvain White. After the events of Episode 7, where Roy locates Dorothy in the hospital, Dorothy's forced back to the Tillman Ranch by Roy and by his men. But Officer Witt sees her at the hospital before she checks out. He wants to know if she's in need of help. She tells him that she is fine, but he can tell that something is quite amiss here. So he goes off to warn Danish, who he runs into at a gas station, and also calls Officer Olmsted to try to get some folks on his side, try to see what they should do to help Dorothy. Whit tells Danish, Indira tells Lorraine about what's happening, but Roy and Gator have threatened Whit not to come on their property, not to interfere with what's going on, or they will kill him on sight. Meanwhile, Danish and Lorraine have come up with a plan to sabotage Roy Tillman's sheriff election campaign. And after this happens and Roy punches a woman, Danish goes to visit Roy. Roy kills him and buries him on his ranch. Meanwhile, while Dorothy is imprisoned by Roy, she stands up to him, which causes a series of physical and mental abuses to come her way. She tries to help get Gator to help her escape, saying that she knows where Linda is, who is Gator's mother, and can help take him to her. But there's some confusion about what actually has happened to Linda. So he refuses, and Dorothy is left stuck in the ranch, still in prison at the end of episode 8. So you sent me a message saying that you really enjoyed this episode, that it was haunting and quite impactful. I can't help but agree. This is a lot to get into in this one, but this was a powerful episode. One of these that came with this sort of warning to the beginning about some of the material that would happen on here, and man, there was no shortage of that. Lot to dig into. Where would you like to start?
Um, you're so smart. Why are you so dead?
Why are you so dead? I'm really upset that this is the last that we see of Dave Foley.
Yeah,
I
me too.
mean, especially after his his little, just how he played that first scene when he's at the courthouse and he's there
Hmm.
with the guys. Just so he seems, maybe more so than any other character, like he fits in that world and fits in that part of the country. He just did an amazing job, and like I said, just have to give him credit. This last we see of him.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, and then that opening scene, I love how they do it where you kind of have to, they don't tell you what's going on. You kind of have to figure out what's going
Yeah.
on. But I thought that was really entertaining when, Ding's over the next number and he's like, still me. Um, yeah. So you want to change all three of these guys' names to Roy Tillman. I don't even know if they say Roy Tillman in that scene,
Yeah, so
actually.
that's exactly, I think, what you're
Um,
saying, which is that opening scene doesn't, it says they're all changing their names to the same name, but you
yeah,
don't know what that context is until they get to the debate.
yeah,
That's what he did.
until you get the debate later. I don't know whether this has any plausibility as a real world plan. I didn't do any research along the lines of trying to poke holes in it,
Yeah, yeah.
so I don't know. But I find it very entertaining. I think in the real world, maybe not. I don't know. But since we're talking about this, right, that is the plan. He ultimately has these three guys show up as at the debate or town hall,
Hmm.
dressed like Roy, wearing hats like Roy, and then they start mimicking him. Um, and I think getting him to lose his temper as he does was probably part of the plan.
Had to have been. Yeah, to get him to, I don't know that they thought he would punch the host
Punch
of
the
the debate.
moderator. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, but this to do something to overreact on camera and in front of people. Um, the thing is, I don't know if Roy considers this that he's taken any step back in this situation, right? He's handled his revenge, he's gotten his retribution, or handed out the justice there. Does he even think that this is going to cause him any problems? The people love him, the people know him. I don't know. Does he think he can bounce back from this? I bet someone with his type of ego and narcissism does think that he can.
Maybe so. Maybe
Yeah,
so. I think he's also deeply, deeply angry about it, and
very
that
much so.
is on display already in the scene in the car where Karen is saying whatever she's saying, he doesn't want to hear anything, right? And then also arguably, as he goes to beat on Dot,
Yeah.
basically, that anger is boiling out. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about with all of this is clearly Danish makes a mistake here.
Yes.
Why do you think he didn't call Lorraine? Because he thought about calling Lorraine at the gas station. He has his phone out. He's thinking
Yeah.
about calling Lorraine, and he says, "Not call Lorraine."
I've been thinking about this. I don't know that I necessarily have a good answer for why he would not involve her. I mean, clearly she had to have been involved in the plot to do this or to, sabotage the debate. Why he would choose to sort of go off on his own to try and make this deal without Lorraine's foreknowledge really confusing because he doesn't seem to be the person we've talked about this before as a yes man, as a fixer. He is someone who just follows orders, just goes in line with whatever Lorraine says. So it seemed out of character to me that he would do this without her knowing it. So I don't want to have an answer on why he would choose to not give her that call and give her heads up of here's what's happened, here's where she is.
Yeah, I mean, I can only think of. I've got kind of two possibilities. Maybe
Hmm.
they could run together to some degree, but they also seem they kind of seem like they're pulling in opposite directions. Okay,
Yeah.
but maybe it's somehow both. Still, one is I don't like maybe Danish is worried that Lorraine isn't going to go for his idea.
Yeah.
Maybe he's worried that she's going to put more weight on carrying through the plan of sabotaging Roy than on her daughter-in-law's life. Maybe he's worried that she's just not going to be on board enough
Yeah.
or have enough urgency because Wit expresses that there's urgency to the situation or something like
Yeah.
that. That's sort of one possibility. The other that I found myself landing on more was that in this moment, very
Hmm.
foolishly, Danish decides he's going to take care of it himself, that he doesn't need to bother Lorraine about this. He's got an idea about how to take care of it himself, and he's going to do that
Hmm.
and save the day, as it were,
Yeah.
by going to save Dot.
I wonder, and it's sort of a combination of your 2 points, if Danish thinks that Lorraine doesn't actually really care about Dorothy. She doesn't really care about what happens to her. She does care about beating Roy. She cares about winning against him. She cares about making something happen to make her win and him lose. So would she have gone along with that plan? And Danish actually has as a little bit of sentimentality, a little bit of sympathy, a little bit of I need to take care of this person. So he just goes off and says, "Well, Rain wouldn't go for this anyways. I'm just going to go take care of it." Who knows? But it could be that he doesn't think Lorraine has any sort of sense of we need to protect or take care of Dorothy.
Yeah, I think we're hitting on it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But the only clarification I'd want to make is you have to realize in real life, if you are Danish, you don't necessarily land on something as firm as I don't think Lorraine's gonna go for this. The question is, do I call? Do I do I ask permission? Do I ask for guidance
Yeah.
as opposed to making the decision to go and do what I wanted to do? You know,
Hmm.
it's kind of like people will say, often very toxically, in my opinion, people will say things like, it's better to ask for forgiveness than
Hmm.
permission.
Yeah.
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 Not a good mantra to live by, in the opinion of Cameron Crane, but I think it's kind of in that space. But then, unfortunately, he miscalculates,
Hmm.
and I think really the big miscalculation is in his assessment of Roy.
Exactly.
Because even as he's standing in the room, even as Roy gets the gun out and puts it on his desk, it's like Danish can't imagine a world where this guy's going to shoot him.
Yeah, that Roy is wounded, and so will back into a corner instead of being wounded, and so he will attack to make sure he doesn't get wounded any further. I mean, yeah, that's a major miscalculation on his part.
Yeah, and I think the games are interesting because, look, in my opinion at least, someone like Lorraine and Danish, it's not like they're good people, they're like exploiting people, debt collectors, and all of this. And we've talked about this theme of
Hmm.
kind of not respecting the law or the authorities. Just put a face on it. Think about the FBI.
Yeah.
Roy's very dismissive, so's Lorraine, basically, right?
Yes.
But that they're coming from different angles where Lorraine's whole thing and Danish's whole thing would all be within some kind of rules of the game of civil society or something, if
Mhm.
I can put it that way, in a certain way. In other words, the Lorraine solution would never be brute violence, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so thus Danish can't quite fathom that Roy, who's also a figure
Hmm.
of some prominence, elected official, county sheriff, all of
Yeah.
that, would respond simply by shooting him dead. Like
I
he
think
can't fathom that, and he's wrong.
I think that's a great point because Danish, even if it's in an underhanded way, is thinking about things from a law or legal perspective or what someone should or could not do in a situation. I was just rewatching episode 2 not long ago, and that speech that Roy gives about what is legal and illegal versus what is right and wrong. And now it's his job to protect what is right and wrong. And what is right is what he determines in his mind is right. And so this is a self-preservation thing. So he's ready to do whatever it takes. Yeah, like I said, just major misjudgment from Danish.
Yeah. So I think continuing on this path a bit, we'll have to circle back around to some other things. But so the final scene, Danish, how they dispose of Danish's body,
Yeah.
where they dispose of Danish's body. I have a theory about this.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't pay a lot of attention to where other than it looked like it was underneath some kind of well or something, but I
I
wondered
think
if
that
it
was his hot tub.
that was his hot tub. Oh, okay, okay. I didn't notice that was the location of where it was
I
based
think
on
so.
everything. So is the, oh, I'd hate to think that his victims are somehow like, powering or heating his naked hot tub. Maybe they are, but also was wondering, he references putting Dorothy in the episode next to Linda. Is this where we can find where Linda actually is, as opposed to where Dorothy thinks that she is?
Yeah. I think that that's hinted at. And the
Yeah.
thing I want to draw in here, we were talking about this at length last week with the extended dream sequence. And that part of that dream was Dorothy going to that oil rig.
Hmm.
And what was she digging up? What was she looking for? She finds
Yeah.
the postcard and so on. I'm thinking now that Dorothy subconsciously, or maybe consciously before her accident, I don't know, kind of knew that Roy had killed Linda and
Mm.
put her there because there's some resemblance between his kind of oil rig windmill that he's got going and that location we saw in the dream.
And where she found that postcard, where she had buried that postcard. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I wondered if, um, if that had happened long ago and Linda was never where we think that she was during that episode 7, or she was there, Roy found her, and has, exacted his revenge. And whether Gator knows that or not, we really don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, we really don't know, frankly, if Roy is telling the truth about Linda being dead on his property. I guess we have to take him at his word on that. Um, all we can say for certain is that what Dorothy experienced in episode 7 was a dream sequence.
Yeah, we know it was a dream. I just wonder how much information Fargo will find a way to give us to answer
Yeah.
some of these questions. And so I wanted to get that out there that if they don't give us anything else, you could at least tie these things together and say, oh, well, maybe it was something in a dream representation of where he actually
Yeah,
did put Linda, and that at some level Dorothy knows that.
exactly.
It struck me, you mentioned Gator, and actually in the episode, this happens before Roy has said this. But even in her exchange with Gator, she's telling Gator that she can take him to his mom and things like this. And he calls her a liar.
Hmm.
I was already kind of getting the feeling there that maybe Linda was dead and maybe Gator knew that Linda was dead. Was that just me or did you show that at all?
So the only reason why I had a little bit of pause in that is because it seemed like Gator had some sort of sense of emotion or hopefulness, and maybe even considered what Dorothy was offering for a moment. And if he knows that she's dead and that that's not a possibility, or maybe, I could have completely misread that. But it's like almost like he considered it for a second before he says, no. He's still trying to prove himself, as we learned from this conversation about why he's not named Roy. He's still trying to prove himself worthy of being a Roy. And so he says no to Dorothy's offer, but did he consider it for a second? That's kind of where I got some pause on that.
Yeah. Maybe maybe he doesn't know in the sense of having seen it,
Yeah,
but maybe he assumes, or maybe even Roy told him at one point that
yeah.
he killed Linda.
That very well
So
could be the
um
case. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Carrying forward with Gator, he goes, he threatens Wit, who's at the gate, does fire a shot, a warning shot.
Yeah.
Um, and then we were talking about this a little bit before we recorded. You see a figure pop up in the back
Mhm.
of his car, which I'm pretty sure is Munch, but we don't return to that for the rest of the episode. It's like 20 more minutes of episode. It's like right in the middle, and that's all
Exactly.
you get.
And you helped me understand that that's probably, I was sort of confused about who that would have been. But based on what we saw in it was episode 7 where we see him at the house where he kills the guy who's asking for the rent, I believe.
I believe
And
so.
he
Yeah,
understands that Gator was there. He sees Gator there. And so it makes sense that he's tracking Gator and would be some place where he can get that revenge back at Gator. But you're right. We see him pop up, assuming that's him, and then don't see what happens as Gator drives off. I mean, is he just sitting there where you can see him in the back of the car for, for several miles, or, we have no idea what's happening there. But Gator may be the next person to go here if we're sort of fast forwarding to episode 9.
I would assume so. But there are a couple of things about this that are weird, besides the fact that they kind of throw this scene in halfway
Yeah.
through and don't return to it. And we're watching this attentively.
Yeah.
Some people watch television, they aren't always looking at the screen, and you might have just missed this,
Yeah.
you know. Um, that it's Munch makes sense. Where
Yeah.
we left off with him, we were saying last week, he's going after Gator, obviously, right? Um, how do you get in the back of a cop car? That's kind of a question. And
Yeah.
also, what exactly is his plan? Because attacking someone from the back seat of a cop car isn't a good plan, right? I realize, like, I almost expect him to, pop up and attack right away,
Yeah.
but presumably you can't, there's probably like bulletproof glass
There
between
was,
the
yeah,
front seat and the back seat and all of that.
I went back and looked. There was a barrier between the back seat and where Gator is in the front. So, I guess it works both ways. They can't get to each other. Munch is just counting on the fact that he can, whenever Gator stops or pulls over, whatever, that he can overpower him when he notices that he's there. That's the best thing I can think
Yeah.
of.
Here's the best plan. Here's the best Munch plan. I can see that. So he's been hiding, right? And
Mhm.
now he's just gonna sit up and he's just gonna sit there until Gator notices him in the rearview mirror and freaks out,
Exactly.
right? And then he's go, like he'll pull over or something, and then
Yeah.
But the
So,
fact that I spent the rest of the episode kind of waiting for that payoff, and we didn't get it.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of wanted some resolution to that. It certainly didn't come. It makes you think of, I think this is the end of episode 2, where Gator is in the convenience store. The officer is filling up with gas. Munch comes up, kills him, leaves him with a note on it that says, "You owe me." Gator comes out. when he finally sees what has happened, I mean, he freaks out. There's no calmness. There's no, sense of, I'll have to handle this situation. I mean, he freaks out. And so, yeah, that's one thing we have got to be sure we see in episode 9. They better show us what happens. It's not just, Munch has Gator tied up somewhere. We need to see how this takes place.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
And the other thing, again, we have some other stuff to circle back to, but there's 2 more episodes of the season.
Yeah.
Doesn't it kind of feel like there should only be one? Or
Yeah.
instead of like, how are there 2?
I was going to mention this to you. This felt to me like often we talk about these in these powerful series, the penultimate episode of a series is the best one. And it's almost at the climax to sort of tip it over the top in the finale. That's what it felt like to me. So to have 2 left, and you and I have screeners. The only description in the upcoming episode is the tide turns. That's what it says, right? So it's like, okay, give it to me. I want to see what happens here. But yeah, I felt the same way. What are they going to do for 2 episodes?
Yeah, we'll see, I guess, right? We do have a couple other threads to pick up on. Indira is a big one. Yep. She gets the call from Whit. She stops home to change her clothes, and good old Lars stepping out on her in her own bed.
In the bed she paid for, and the house that she takes care of, and yeah. And I hate to think, I mean, Lars, what a despicable guy. Is he actually going to leave? He's still going to be there when she gets back, right? He's not going anywhere. He's still
going to be there. He's still going to be there. He's be like, I don't,
he's going to be on the simulator when she gets home.
Probably, man. Seriously, I don't think he's just going to leave.
Yeah.
She gives him what for, and I think in part she's listing his faults for the benefit of the woman who she found in the closet. Tells him to get out. Yes, I'm behind her. Go, Indira. Go, good plan. Unfortunately, it would seem as she leaves, her car's being repossessed.
Yeah, and that is her car, not Lars's car. Lars drives the Jeep, I believe, but it's the other car that's repossessed. So yeah, what is? I mean, what a day for Indira. But this is certainly the character you're pulling for this series.
Yeah. She has her police vehicle, but I don't let her drive. They don't let them drive it all the time, I guess.
Right.
She goes over to Lorraine's. Apparently, she takes a job. Does this surprise you?
Yeah, it seems that way.
It's pretty quick, Yeah.
Lorraine
says, "Oh, you're here to take the job," and Indira seems to say, "Yes, but I know where Dot is."
Yeah. We have to handle this first, and she is the one. Yeah, like you said, to break the news to Lorraine.
Yeah, so that's pressing. We don't really return to them.
Nope.
So that's out there in terms of where we go. Instead, we go back to Roy. And I did want to talk about one other thing here. After he returns from the debate or the town hall, you have this really long shot where he's walking towards the shed.
Yeah.
And a cover version of Britney Spears' Toxic.
Yeah.
Which I believe the artist here is Hope D. I went and poked around and it sounds like it. I didn't find written confirmation.
Yeah.
What did you think of this? I guess both the song and the scene.
Yeah. So really adequate song, certainly when you talk about the nature of who Roy is and sort of this masculine toxicity that he displays. It struck me while this was happening. I was like, this is a really long, nonstop walking scene. I mean, there was one of these recently in House of the Dragon where Viserys the king walks through this long courtway up to the Iron Throne. It made me think of just sort of these. What I thought about in this scene was what's going through his mind as he's clearly walking towards this room or wherever that Dorothy is held. How did someone get the better of me? How did someone find a way to bring me down a notch? And how can I blame Dorothy for it and therefore take it out on her?
Yeah, Really, it's her fault
Yeah,
because somehow it's her fault that
gotta be. Has to be. Yeah.
this thing happened. And from a certain point of view, it's not entirely wrong. I mean, because Danish did it because of the whole backstory with Dorothy and so on and so forth. But
Yeah.
I'm by no means excusing Roy's behavior. Um, I like the use of the song, and I like the cover version of the song.
Yeah.
And once again, as I think I said last week, Fargo is not subtle.
This is about as far away from subtle as you can get.
Yeah, the extended shot of Roy Tillman as the lyrics go, "Don't you know that I'm toxic?" Yeah, not subtle. Not subtle. I enjoy it. It's funny. I was looking. Oh man, I forgot. I was going to make a note of the band. I was looking for cover versions of Toxic. And are you aware that there's this like other cover version from quite a long time ago that's by one of these kind of like preppy metal bands, like
Oh
pop
no.
metal bands,
Oh boy. Okay.
like it like Fallout or Avenged Sevenfold or something, but that's not who did it. It was someone else. It was someone I'd never heard of. That was kind of interesting. Um,
There are some moments in shows where I mean you think, could you have possibly put another song or score on top of this? And I just in the moment thought, this is pretty perfect as he's making this long walk. It's on the nose, but it's pretty perfect.
yeah, I agree. It was well done, and the cover is good. I don't if it would have worked with the Britney Spears song itself. You
Yeah,
could see
right.
it, could see it almost. It's too fast. You need a
Do
slower
that.
version.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty good cover, I think. So I don't know. It doesn't. There's not a lot of hope. I mean, in terms of how the episode ends, certainly there is in terms of Lorraine being out there and Dira being out there. They
Yeah.
know where Dorothy is, whatever's going on with Munch.
Yeah.
I would expect the way it plays out isn't exactly straightforward.
Here's one thing that I feel like I need your opinion on, which is it, so we made the point that Danish did not call Lorraine. So Lorraine does not know that Danish went there, confronted him, and is dead. We know that Dorothy saw someone going into the ground as she's looking out the window. She sees what happens there. Does she realize that it is Danish? Because I think Lorraine, goes nuclear if she realizes that Roy has done this to Danish. Now she could probably make some strong assumptions that that's the case, but has Dorothy witnessed Danish going into the ground and can sort of corroborate that and I don't know, activate Lorraine in a way if she's able to escape.
Yeah, possibly.
I just didn't get a sense
I
of does
mean,
she know who was going in the ground?
I mean, it's hard to tell from the scene.
Yeah.
What are we going to get into? Going back and trying to magnify the footage and guessing what she could have seen.
Yeah.
But I can say this: Danish, he has a distinctive look to him.
He does. He does.
So I don't know. See the eye patch or the other thing I'll tie in here, part of what I was trying to get at earlier is a question I'm still asking myself that I'm not entirely sure we're going to get an answer to. That question is, what was Dorothy's plan when she left Scotty with Indira?
Yes.
We know what happened, but what did she intend to be doing?
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit unsure.
Well, it
If it,
seems
Go
well,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I was thinking, well, clearly her plan was to go find Linda, bring her back, they prosecute or whatever but then obviously that never happened.
No, because it was a dream, and so my current hypothesis is I don't know if it quite works, but if the oil rig in the dream was a dream representation of where Roy actually is putting Danish's body, maybe she had that inkling or knew that he disposed of bodies there, and that's what she was going after in some way. But I don't know how she could have gotten that evidence, or how she would have thought she could have gotten that evidence. See, in other words,
Okay.
what I'm thinking is maybe Dorothy's thought was, look, the fact that this guy abused me, the fact that he had me kidnapped and all
Mhm.
of that, that's not going to be enough. I have
Yeah.
to get him for murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
how
I
I don't know
mean,
how she would have gotten that evidence.
I don't either. And she certainly can get it now, now that she's there. She has the scars literally to prove that. Um, but how she can, or what would have been her plan pre-capture? Because certainly that wasn't in the cars for her to get into some sort of car accident and get captured and Roy find her. You know, I think that's one thing we may never understand. What was the goal of leaving Scotty, going out to do something? Maybe she literally
Mhm.
was going to leave that diner, go try to find this place or this person or this idea of how to take down Roy, but was just, what happened to her. We simply won't know, I don't think.
Yeah, the best I've got is some speculations there, but it is a
Yeah.
question I find myself continuing to think about. There are 2 episodes left. Maybe there'll be more that can be sort of lumped in there. But I also think you're right. Thinking about those 2 hours we've got left, basically,
Hmm.
in terms of what you were saying, if Lorraine, or when Lorraine finds out that Roy has killed Danish,
Yep.
that the gloves are going to come off
Yep.
in a meaningful way, So if we're thinking, well, how is it 2 episodes? Maybe somehow, and I haven't watched anymore. I haven't watched by an episode 8 at this
Yep.
point, to be clear. Maybe somehow in episode 9, it's like Dot gets away or is rescued, and then maybe episode 10 is coming back to give Roy Tillman what he has coming, something
Yeah.
like
That
that.
I could see episode 9 being an escape. Things are revealed, things are set in motion for a big time confrontation between Roy, his people, and Lorraine and Dorothy. Them being on the same side, I think it strikes me as a little odd. And then somehow we've got to factor in how much lands in that circle, right? What his role ends up being with this, which has got to be something.
Yeah. And then maybe the FBI will show up.
Yep.
And there's been a lack of connections to other seasons. It's like, does Lorraine have contacts with the what's the mafia? What it's a weird the mafia, the
Um,
Oklahoma mafia or whatever.
I remember the Kansas City Mafia,
Oklahoma?
I think, from
Kansas
last year.
City mafia.
Yeah, yeah,
See, I'm a coastal elitist confusing all of my flyover states. Without apology. I'm not going to apologize.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So maybe she has some contacts with the Kansas City Mafia, so or something, and we will finally get some connection to other seasons. I don't know.
Yeah, a connection would be nice. How all these threads tie together from a character basis is going to be interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, you think about it, it's. I'm glad there's 2 hours left. There's a lot
Oh
left to
yeah,
do.
yeah. I'm not complaining. It's just like
Yeah,
it already feels so close to
right,
climax, as it were.
right.
Um, so we'll see what happens next
Yes,
couple
sir.
of weeks. Anything else we want to hit on here before we wrap up?
I'm good. I'm just really looking forward. I may have to go power through 9 here pretty soon.
Yeah, same. Probably later tonight.
Yes.
I do like to have a little bit of time where I'm not ahead of the world if I can
Yeah,
arrange it, and like maybe actually engage with people on social media, because I somewhat feel once I'm ahead on these shows that I
yeah.
watch, I can't talk anymore. So be very careful.
We can say it's not a spoiler to say these are all out there. Episode 9 is titled "The Useless Hand." There's several things I can think of. I'll save theories for, I guess, my own brain, since we'll be talking about this one next week. But there's a lot
And
of things I can think of there.
do we have a line on why this one is called Blanket?
I think only because of the. I mean, my only reference was the blanket she's covering herself when she's it's not escaped when she's cut off the chains. She's hiding that weapon. That's what she's using to sort of cover her method of escape. But that's the only blanket reference I could come up with.
Yeah, that's the blanket in the episode. I mean, there's another blanket.
Which
Lars
one?
is under a blanket.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. That's true.
I guess we could
Oh
spin
my God.
some metaphorical thought about hiding things under a blanket, and then you ultimately get what Roy's been hiding.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess um, it works. But all right, we'll leave it there. Thanks as always for joining us. We'll be back next week for season 5, episode 9, The Useless Hand. Um, Follow the site on social media, TV Obsessive. Read stuff on the site. You can read Felicia Nicken's recap of this episode now because it will be published by the time you can listen to this. And yeah, she's been on the show week to week for us all season. So you can check that out. Some other stuff on the site about Fargo if you're inclined to read things and about other shows. Read our work. We write things. It's good. All right, so we'll leave it there. See you next week.
All right. Take care. See you then.